There's something special about hunting a predator.
It's spiritual. A bear, something else comes over me, it feels like, and just the amount of respect that I have for a bear. They're so smart and their noses are so good that it's literally a game of inches. You have a bear bait barrel or whatever set here and it's not optimal for wind or for thermals or whatever, like, you're toast. But if you just change it even a little bit, you could have completely different results.
Guys, Dan Staten here with Elk Shape, and you are listening to the Mountain Dude Podcast.
Join us as we explore what shapes us.
When I wake up, I set goals, and I really want to achieve them just for myself.
Where we share stories of grit, determination, and the relentless pursuit of growth.
You better get your checkbook and your come along. Dirk killed an elk. He's like, what?
This is a space where backcountry hunting meets the deeper lessons of life.
Yeah. We'll just bring our Dora the Explorer backpacks. What are you going to carry in that?
You're not only going to be entertained.
My advice to young people that are going for it, by the way, is say yes. Say yes to everything.
But we're going to make you better.
I'm almost 50, so give me a break.
Oh, Nate, we start every episode with a prayer.
Oh, we need that. Yeah. That's great.
This is the Mountain Dude Podcast, where we climb higher together.
Well, Richard Bettencourt, welcome back to the Mountain Dew Podcast, man.
Let's go, baby. Happy to be here.
Dude.
Part 2. We'll see how crazy or uncrazy we can get.
Yeah.
Let's go, man.
Dude, this one's going to be fun. I am chomping at the bit for spring bears. Like, I'm counting down the seconds, and that's what we're going to get into today.
Spring bears.
Spring bears. Spring is here. Spring's been here maybe a while, right? But spring,
this year for sure.
The months at least are here. And yeah, I mean, for me, I'm an elk guy, don't get me wrong, but like a very close second and something I'm thinking about just as much are black bears. Bears, not like the cuddly bears, but like the apex bears, the mountain Bruins, as some people may call them,
Yeah.
So yeah, very excited.
There's something special about hunting a predator. There really is.
It's spiritual.
Yeah.
Honestly. That's the one animal, don't get me wrong, I have respect for every animal that I kill, but it's like a bear, something else comes over me, it feels like. And just the amount of respect that I have for a bear, because I think, like you said, it's a predator, and it's something that kills itself, it will kill other animals.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're able to do that is, it's just a different feeling. So, yeah.
I totally agree with that. Well, let's start every show like we do with a prayer. Dennis, do you mind?
Gladly. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to get together as brothers, and we just ask that you bless our time. And may any listener out there that needs to hear something that we say, just bless them. Speak through us. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Richard, how long you been hunting bears, man?
So, well, that's an interesting question. So seriously hunting bears, I've been hunting bears since 2019, seriously.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was really just something to go do in the spring, and it was, hey, it's bear season, let's go drive around and glass and see if we can't find a bear. My dad, Angry Dick, he's been hunting bears a lot longer than me. He grew up in the old days of Idaho where the units weren't necessarily as coveted, and he had a lot more friends and family living in different parts of Idaho that had a lot of bears. So he'd go with them and they'd run hounds and stuff. But for me personally, I've been hunting bears seriously since spring of 2019. So that was when we said, to heck with all this, glassing and driving around stuff. Let's get serious about it. Let's figure it out. Just like anything, there's obviously some sort of formula that we need to start researching and start understanding about not only the species, but the environment that they're in and the mountain that they're in, and go from there. And it's been quite a journey. And the funny thing about spring bear hunting, and specifically bear baiting, which is what we do, is you think that it's a simple formula, but really when you dive into it, there is quite a science that is involved with it. So it's pretty unique, and it's pretty awesome that here in the state of Idaho that is one of the methods of take for hunting bears is baiting among spot and stalk and hound hunting. And we every year, I mean, through our YouTube channel, we've documented it every year essentially, and you can just see our evolution, which I think is great for viewers and listeners to use as a reference point, because how I've evolved over the last 6 or 7 seasons is, I can go back and watch those videos now, and I can actually identify my gaps of knowledge to then use those as teaching points for people who ask me questions or are wanting to get into it. So,
and and we gotta remember too that bear hunting is predator management.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And the method of take, I mean, my main method of take, or preferred method of take, is spot and stalk. Yep. Love spot and stalk bear hunting.
Same.
But man, there for about 3 years, I was fortunate enough to start baiting with a couple of buddies of mine, and there was something special about that, and about being able to bring those predators into one spot. And highly, highly effective method of predator management. And that's what we have to remember, because, I mean, you're going to have some folks that, bear bait, that's cheating, and all this. We are predator managing.
Correct.
And we're saving elk, we're saving deer by doing this. And we're enjoying, ourselves, and we're enjoying the spoils of it, because bear meat is freaking awesome if you cook it right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could go off on about bear meat and bear fat and everything. That's, I mean, again, like I said earlier, I'm an elk guy, but bear meat, you give me a choice between an elk burger or a bear burger, I'm bear burger all day.
Same.
You give me a choice between elk sausage and bear sausage, I'm bear sausage all day.
Yeah. It's the fat.
It's the fat.
Rich.
I mean, it's rich, it's flavorful, it's got character, it's the best. It's just the best. And like, for folks who haven't eaten it, it's like, if you ever have the opportunity to eat bear, especially a mountain Idaho black bear, like, it's going to be a treat, and it's going to be delicious. And back to what Dennis was saying about predator management, I mean, baiting. So yes, bear hunting is predator management, absolutely. And the Idaho Fish and Game have allowed us to have all these different methods of take, because the population densities are very stable and growing. Very high. Yeah, so there are a lot of bears in the state of Idaho. That's why you see a lot of people coming here to hunt bears. But the Fish and Game does a good job as far as keeping numbers on that, and baiting is another avenue of conservation, in my opinion, absolutely. Because yes, you're bringing these bears into an area, but then that allows you to study them, and it allows you to really see the age class and the size and the activity, and understand the bears in the area. And like where we bait, for instance, the underbrush after, let's say mid-May, for instance, it's also grown in, and these black bears are only 3.5 feet tall when they're on all fours, and you're never gonna see them out there if you're just glassing mountains. Like, you may catch a glimpse for a second, but it's never long enough to study them. You'll see them when you're out there spot and stalking them in these areas we're in. You'll see them long enough to go, oh, it's a bear, and then you might shoot it, and then you realize, oh, maybe that wasn't the age class of bear that I would have preferred to shoot. Whereas the baiting method and having trail cams up and being able to sit in a tree stand or a tree saddle and actually watch these bears come in and size them up and understand, okay, this is this bear who we've patterned that does this. And we've actually seen him with other bears, and we know that his size is, average or small compared to this other bear that's been coming in. So actually, the famous quote, let him grow, which can be, I don't want to say controversial, but can have two different sides of an opinion, because some folks might think like just shoot whatever bear you can. But I think there is something to keeping the bear populations at a stable population. You got to let these bears get a little more mature. So yeah, it's something that I'm pretty passionate about as far as like being able to have the opportunity to have these different methods of take and use what is becoming more advanced technology like a cellular trail cam to really study the bears and see their activity and see their size and everything. So
yeah. Well, and I would, as somebody I've literally never baited in my life, but I have spot and stocked, and we've been fortunate enough to kill a lot of bears spot and stock. I would argue that you guys that do bait, your bear knowledge grows so much faster than the guy that actually just spot and stocks, because you're exactly right. Like very early on in my spot and stock career, before I was worried about passing up smaller bears and trying to get a certain age class, you saw a bear, you shot a bear.
Yeah.
And we didn't sit there and watch bears for extended periods of time. It's a little different now at the point I'm at spot and stock wise, because I'm trying to kill a specific age class or size of bear. So we're watching them a little bit more. But even early on from the baiting side, you guys are watching and learning bear behavior. And there's so much knowledge that you gain from that.
Yeah, something that, again, to what Dennis was saying, how some folks might think you're quote unquote cheating because you're baiting. I have a hard time hearing that, because it's basically discrediting how smart the animal and the bear is itself. I mean, these bears are wise. They're an old animal that's been around for a long, long time, and the way they have evolved and the way that their olfactory senses and all the different parts that make them what they are is so incredibly strong and unique that these bears don't just see a pile of food laying out there. They're going to really, really do their research before they come in and make themselves comfortable, because they know it's not a natural source of food, and they know that this really hasn't been here all year, so why is it here now? So they do their homework too, and you'll hear about guys who bait, these bear trails that these bears make, and they will circle on these bear trails around the bait sites, just trying to catch every glimpse of scent that they can in the area. And I think, their sense of smell, I think I could get this wrong, but it's like 100 times stronger than like a bloodhound dog. Yeah. So it's like they have
thinking about that, like how mind blowing is that?
Yeah. I mean, so no matter what you're doing, especially like baiting, if you're sitting in a bait site, like they're smelling you, and they understand that something's not right. Now it just depends on how comfortable they are to then come in. And that's why when a bear does come into our bait site that's of an age class that we will shoot, like it's really exciting, and it's super like, oh my gosh, it's all coming together, like this is incredible, so.
Well, that's something so cool about bears too, just in general, for like the public that doesn't really hunt them. Like, you've killed an absolute giant. How old was that bear? I haven't got the tooth back on my bear.
Yeah, he was 18.
18.
Oh, wow.
That's like, and I know that bear was 20
yeah, he was 20 and an eighth.
Exactly. And I killed a really big bear last year. I haven't got age back yet. But that's just my example. The point of that, like how many deer or elk, the giants that you're killing, that's a third. They're a third of that age. Like you get a 6 or 7 year old bull or elk, or bull or buck. That's a great animal. Like the fact that they've lived that, and bears are living 3 times that. Like think of the amount of experience they have as well, which is why it's so cool to be able to watch and kill those big animals, because they're so smart. That bear's been around for 18 years. He's been avoiding people and everything else for 18 years. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're extremely smart. And one thing with bear baiting, and I know you've seen this because you guys have probably baited the same bait sites now for years, right? And the more established these bait sites get, as in year after year you're baiting the same ones, you get these bears that are accustomed to it. And you probably have seen, and we saw this when we started, and I baited the same spot for about 3 years. We noticed the first year it was maybe 5-6 different bears. And then the next year, maybe 10, 12. And then the next year it was even more than that. So they become accustomed to it, and you've probably seen that. But the boars are interesting because you'll have sows and cubs show up, and you'll have the boars show up at night until it comes a certain time when maybe the rut kicks in. It gets later on in May, early June, and then all of a sudden these boars will start. You'll see them start easing toward that first light and very last light, and then you'll catch one slipping up in the middle of the day. But how cool is it to see, to have the trail cams and to be able to see these bears that are coming, especially, where you've got the cellular camera technology now. That's really cool. And that was one thing that I just really, it just intrigued me and it excited me because, and we didn't have trail cams we didn't have cell cams where we were. So we had to go every time we baited, we would change the card out. Yeah. And just getting back to the truck and plugging it into the computer or doing it right there.
Christmas morning.
It's Christmas morning.
Yeah.
It's seeing what kind of bears you have coming, and that was, to me, was one of the most exciting parts of it. What about for you?
Yeah, I'll speak on the cell cams. They can kind of be a blessing and a curse, to be honest, because like you were saying, when
in the middle of the night,
right, or when you have the trail cam that doesn't have the cellular, it is that excitement of we're going to the bait site, we get to see how it's done the last week or couple days, and then you get to study it that way. The cell cams are great because you get to study it firsthand, and it's like you get to understand like what's happening today or whatever. We have it set up to send us photos, I think, twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. So we're able to study it then. But the boars, they're really interesting because you'll have all these bears in and then they'll disappear and you're not sure why until you see that big boar. And these boars are so territorial, especially at a certain time of the year where, if there's a sow that's got cubs or a sow that's not in heat or not going to come into heat, these boars run them off. And I mean, honestly, our bait sites, I've even seen boars run off elk because we've had elk coming into our bait sites and eating on our bait sites and literally have photos of elk and then dust and then a big boar coming in. And so it was like, oh, wow, this boar is like just territorial over every animal that's coming into this bait site.
It reminds you why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
When you get that kind of footage.
Yeah, because especially, I don't know if he's just being territorial of the bait or if this boar is just hanging out with these elk because he's waiting for a calf to drop and he's waiting to pick up on that scent to then eat the bait in the meantime, but then really eat the elk calf once it drops. So exactly. Great reminder of like, hey, this is conservation and predator management for elk, which is, like I've said, it's my primary, what I love the most. But it's super exciting and fun and interesting to just watch their behavior. Like I said, they're just so smart and then they're so old and I love actually talking to people about bear hunting because this is stuff that at a 30,000 foot view, people don't get, right? Yeah, people, the general public, and especially folks who aren't hunters or outdoorsmen, like they see bears as fluffy, cuddly creatures, and they are. Like, don't get me wrong, they're beautiful. I love them. They're beautiful, and I want to hug bears too. But I know what really a bear is thinking about doing, so it helps me be like, no, this bear is an apex predator and he's a killer. So here's, we got to do what we got to do to manage them, and they taste delicious. So at the end of the day, it's all about the meat. So
now your preferred method over your bait sites, are you setting up a tree stand or are you off 100, 200 yards in a rifle type stand? I say stand or, a blind or a place on the hill or something like that where you can watch them from there. What are you doing? Yeah,
and we've evolved, like you said, how you establish bait sites. What's interesting is as we've baited through the years, we have established bait sites, but then as our knowledge became greater as far as bear habitat went, we would then move. So where we're currently at and even what we're talking about doing is an area that we've moved into in the last probably, this will be our third season in there. So the hope is, like you were saying, is now that it's a third season established in there, we should see some different numbers or bigger bears more consistently. But so as we've evolved through our bait stand setups, we've evolved with how we have decided to set up. So we've honestly always done close encounter stuff. So we've always been like 20 yards, 18 to 20 yards. I think one year I was actually 13 yards from a bait, which was pretty close. And we've evolved from being in a bait site where we had literally just a brush blind 25 yards away and then like a rifle point at I think it was like 85, 90 yards where the wind was and the thermals were different, so we could sit away. To then now, we've gone to a ground blind even at 20 yards and had a ground blind. And then we've really just evolved to and stuck to being in the trees now. So we've gone from your classic good old boy ladder stands where you can have a bench in there with multiple people, to your Klingon stands, to the tree saddles. And the tree saddles and the Klingon stand is kind of where we like it the best. They're mobile, especially the saddles, which was new for me last year to try out. I got the XOP saddle system and started using that, and that was really great because you can have that system in the same tree as like a Klingon tree stand. So we really like that for like close encounter stuff. Now it would be cool because we mainly use archery equipment. My dad has used a handgun, so he's killed I think all his bears with a handgun. Last year he went for the handgun last year, and then he actually went for the rifle because the bear hurt him or something. So he ended up using the rifle last year. But before that, he had been a handgun guy with these bears, and I've always used my bow. So it's great because being in close to these bears is even a cooler experience, right? Absolutely. Getting to really see them. Like, I'll never forget the first bear I ever shot was the one thing that stuck out to me, other than it being a beautiful cinnamon bear, was its white ivory tipped claws. And I just remember just so vividly seeing those and just being like, whoa, and that bear walked right under me at 7 yards. And I just remember seeing its paws with the white ivory tipped claws. And I was just like, this is like crazy adrenaline right now, because you have adrenaline with deer and elk. And don't get me wrong, it's still like one of my favorite, a big bugling bull coming in. Yeah. But man, a bear, right? With a predator with 10 sharp claws, right? Yeah. And big sharp teeth. Pretty. I'm getting adrenaline dump just thinking about it because it's so exciting. But I've seen guys and heard of guys, they'll set up a rifle spot a couple 100 yards away and then they're able to glass, which I think could be a really effective way too, because you're taking all scent out of the area, the bait. Yeah. So then you might see a more mature bear come in versus staying out of there because he's smelling you or smelling something he doesn't like. So I've seen it both ways, but we've mainly just been that 15 to 20 yards from the bait, try and set up to where our thermals and the winds aren't blowing towards the bait. If we can be across a little draw or something, so the wind's getting sucked out of the way of the bait, then we'll do that. And it's been effective. So what's great about it is, again, the common misconception about baiting, just throw a bait barrel out there and bears are going to come in and you'll be able to shoot a bear. They're so smart and their noses are so good that it's not. It's literally a game of inches. And it's literally, if you have a bear bait barrel or whatever set here and your stand or your blind set here and it's not optimal for wind or for thermals or whatever, you're toast. But if you just change it even a little bit, you could have completely different results. So if for people who do bait or people who want to bait, the biggest thing is really get into an area and like scan and just think about all different possibilities for wind, where the bears could come from, where they are going to come from. Look at it all. And it's kind of hard to do because you're like, oh, it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? So it's like you got to look at the forest, right? Like, how does this ridge work? Where does this go? Where is the water? Where it's, 2:00 right now. What are the thermals doing now? And then what are they going to do at 7 p.m., So it's just really fun science.
Yeah, well, that you talked about, rifle hunting, away from, setting up a rifle stand away from the bait. And I've got a friend that actually what they've done is they'll do the same thing. They'll sit away, and he won't go into this particular bait site until after a certain time because of the thermals and the way the wind does. And so he'll wait till that particular time, and then like while they're baiting, kind of getting the whole thing ready, early season before they start hunting it, he'll actually take a trail and do out a trail with his feet, and just kind of clean it off, even sweep it per se, from where he's sitting 200 yards away to about 30 yards from that bait site. And so he'll actually hunt it with his bow. And so he sees a bear on the bait site and gets the wind, obviously the wind's right. And then he'll sneak in with his bow on that trail that's already swept out and shoot it with his bow. So it's cool. Kind of like spot and stalk.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've ever tried that method, but I'm going to try that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's cool.
I've definitely heard of that too. I have a friend does the same thing, and the ground and pound is what that's called. So you're kind of getting the bait method as well as the spot and stalk if you're going in there. And
you're still having to work on your skills, your stalking skills, because that is a live animal up there, and
they're switched on.
Yeah, they really
Their
are.
Their nose is impossible to beat.
You have the wind right, though, I will say, it's really incredible what you can get away with bears. And I almost, this is the kind of scary part, is I feel like it's because they know they're a predator and they know that they're killers, because they're not as threatened as, say, like an elk or a deer, because they know I can fight, I can kill. I'm a little noise or a little brush rustling around isn't necessarily so scary to me. Whereas an elk or a deer, you get a little too close for comfort, even if you don't have, if the wind's right, they're a flea animal,
For sure.
So
you see deer and elk, the squirrels start to make noise and their ears come up. Right. They're switched on. But that's a great point. I've never even thought about it like that. That bear is not worried about you coming up on him, because he's going to deal with it.
And how much does that bait impact? His flight or fight response. Especially if he's been hitting it year after year, and then he's been hitting it, for a solid month, and everything's gone right. And man, that whatever that guy's putting here is tasting pretty good. So talk to me if you can. I know there's some trade secrets, but talk to me about your method and your tactics as far as the types of baits you're putting out. What's your go-to? What do you have to have at that bear site?
Again, it's been an evolution of learning, right? And we thought, and maybe there is some science to this, but we thought, we got to have the most, in the beginning, we got to have the most enticing, tastiest treats out there for them, right? So if that means ho-hos and donuts and Little Debbie's and whatever, then that's what we're going to do, because we got to get them addicted, right? But as we've evolved and as baiting has become a little more popular and or competitive to get bait, we have learned that these bears, they definitely have their preferences, don't get me wrong, but it's not it's a food source to them, right? And especially in the spring when they're coming out of hibernation and maybe protein sources aren't as like rich for them yet, or they're not able to, you know, get a calf or something. It's gonna feed them, right? And kind of get their calorie count up, because they are crushing calories in the spring, you know, getting ready for summertime and fall time. I feel like they're always working and getting ready for hibernation, if I'm honest, like with the amount they eat. So as we've baited, we've kind of transitioned from being all sweets and all the sweeteners and all the sprays and all that stuff to more of just like let's call it a balanced diet for the bears. Okay. Like, so we'll range from, you know, stuff like dog food with protein, oats that have protein. You could do horse mix, breads, donuts. Fan favorite of the bears, I would say, is the donuts. I would say for sure.
Understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, I love me a good jelly-filled donut. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, they. What's even more funny when you're doing this, and this is how we've learned this, is they'll pick through the bait. So at one point we thought, oh, produce. They're going to love produce, you know, bananas, lettuce, carrots, whatever, apples, whatever. Well, they do love apples, but like produce, right? And they actually would go through our bait barrels and pull out stuff like lettuce or bananas or whatever. And they like, nah, get rid of that.
Yeah, if we're going to the buffet, I mean, I'm not going to go to the salad.
Nobody wants a salad bar.
No, I'm going to choose what I want, you know, right. and it's going to be good, you know.
Yeah, so they do have a preference, and you'll learn that as you're baiting. But I think if you are a guy that's just purely bred, I don't think you're going to necessarily see any problems. Now, I would advise folks, if they're using bred, like, definitely sweeten it up a little, because they do have a sweet tooth, bears, for sure. So they like the sweet stuff. That's why bears, a lot of the times in the summer and fall, they're eating berries all the time, you know, because they got that sweet tooth. And whether it affects the taste of the meat or not, I don't know. But either way, it's delicious. So my biggest like advice for folks baiting, like, there's companies out there like Baitum 907 and Boar Masters and stuff that have like different powders and stuff. And if you're purely a bread guy or a popcorn guy, like, adding that stuff isn't going to hurt. But I don't know if it's necessarily like you got to have it. Now, I will say, I'll give a little secret to people, okay?
Bring it.
Okay, I'll give a little secret.
You're hearing it right here.
I can already hear Angry Dick listening to this going, are you serious? So,
this is where the nickname comes in.
Yeah, I already hear him. But grease. Yeah. If folks can get their hands on grease, which it is a dirty job. You guys remember that show, Dirty Jobs? Yeah. Getting grease is a dirty job. And it's not favorable as far as, you know, managing the grease or getting the grease. But if you get grease and you're able to spread that on your bait site, that is going to be your best friend when it comes to calling bears. And you know how we can call elk and call turkeys and stuff? Like, scent is a call to bears. Obviously, they're a predator. They smell something dead. They smell something sweet. They're going to go check it out. So the grease is a huge call to the bears. We get it. We soak our bread with it. We pour it all over our barrel. We make little puddles for them when they're there, that they get it all over their paws.
And then they track it away from there. And they track other bears get on that track and go to the bait.
Yep.
That's wise.
Yeah, we'll spread oil and grease like probably within a couple hundred yard circumference around the bait on logs and trees and stuff. So if there is a game trail, even, we'll spread it on there. So then if that's where the bears are coming in on, they're smelling it all the way, as well as getting it all over themselves. Yeah. But that's a huge call. And the amount of times we've gone to a new area, greased up a bait site, gotten maybe one or two bears, and then after those bears leave, seeing double on our return investment as far as, you know, them getting greased up and then another bear smelling it or whatever because they were around that bear. Yeah. then come into our bait site it's been very effective.
Yeah.
So
that's pure gold. And I want to get into a little bit about like when you start your bait and stuff. But before we get to that, when you're talking about like moving to a new bait site, this is a new experience for you. Obviously, the ones that you sit year after year, you know what this is going to produce or have a pretty good idea. Those new bait sites are people that are just picking a spot now. How long are you sticking with that? Like, what's your the diligence factor? Like, you're only seeing 1 or 2 bears and it's not what you're looking for. How long are you sticking that out on that bait?
If you're doing all the other things right, which I would say rarely as a new bear hunter or somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience baiting, like rarely they are doing everything right as far as wind, how close or not close they are to water, cover, all these different things. If you're doing all those other things right and you got a bait site in an area and you're, I'd say 15 plus days and you've only seen a bear or two and it's not been very consistent, there's probably something else going on to where you maybe aren't very close to where the bears are living, or that bear is just like he's got other food sources that he's eating on, or the bears in the area that they're eating on. Maybe you're too close to another bait site or something that they're using as their primary. Yeah. There's so many different things, but I'd say definitely after 2 weeks, if you're not seeing a good bear activity at your bait site, you definitely have to reevaluate. They say on the forums and on the Google that like, a 10-day, it could take up to 10 days for a bear to show up on a new bait site. So that's, depends on how the bear density of the area, right? Yeah. So for us, like we've been really fortunate, I'd say, and a lot of our bait sites, we're seeing bears within, we've seen them as soon as the same day and as late as maybe a week, right? But then once they get there or once they find it, they're there. So I've used that to my advantage, right, as far as learning and getting some education on baiting. And it's another little nugget for folks listening or watching. If you know there's bears in an area, do your best to research and find where they might be living, where their bedroom is at, because the closer you can get to bear dens or bear bedrooms or an environment that a bear is more than likely going to spend a lot of time in, I think the more, like, you're increasing your odds a lot more that way. And that's over the last 3 years since we've decided to kind of move a little more and establish a new site. That was my goal, was, okay, I know there's bears in these mountains, find their bedroom. And I think I'm pretty close. I know I'm pretty close because last season we were hiking out bears and I was going through the brush and I'd pop into a bear den and I would 2 a.m. I'd be scared, right? Like it would get me a little scared. It's like, whoa,
need a second pair of underwear.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. I'm glad there wasn't a bear laying here right now, or when we've killed bears in the past and we're taking care of them, I can hear the other bears rustling around in the brush and stuff. So it's like, okay, I'm pretty dang close to where all these bears are living. So I feel it helps with confidence as far as knowing you're in a good area.
Well, and that's such a great point too, because bears are like another animal. Like when you think about mule deer, they have a home. Mm-hmm. That home might be 300 yards and it might be 2 miles. Mm-hmm. So when you get that knowledge and experience and figure out, where's the bedroom, where's their kitchen, where is when they start to get pressure or when things start to show up, where's the feed source, where are they trying to get water? That's a huge tip that you just gave right there.
Yeah, e-scouting it can really help out tremendously. So shout out to my buddy Mark over at Treeline Pursuits. Mm-hmm. Check out his bear e-scouting course for sure, because I think something like that, and I do e-scouting every late winter before I'm going out for spring bear to try to find more and more of these locations like you're talking about. And I think doing that when you're trying to set up a bait site, and we never did it when we were setting up our bait sites there for those 3 or 4 years. But I think doing that can really put a feather in your cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And, bears are interesting because we're really lucky in Idaho that bear season is so long. But there's a little bit of I don't want to say a challenge, but it could be a challenge, is somebody might put a bear bait in a really good spot in the beginning of season when a bear is not as mobile, right? Because he's kind of still getting, waking up and just getting going. And then by June, he's on the move. And where you found him in the beginning was not as close to his bedroom as you may have thought. It was just part of his little travel route for the day. Yeah. But then as the season's gone on, his travel route is a lot bigger now. So he's spending hardly any time versus like I look at it. Whereas if you find the bear's bedroom or their kitchen or whatever, like it's kind of like fishing, like when you're fishing in certain drifts, there's always holes that like the fish are always going to like be apt to lay up in, right? They're, whether they're moving through or whatever, that's where they're going to lay up. So bear hunting, kind of the same, is if you find a spot that's almost like their bedroom, that even when they start to move around or new bears are coming in, like they're more than likely going to end up around where you've baited if it's in their bedroom, because it's kind of like the fishing hole where they're going to lay up anyway, So it's like I said, it's a science, man, and it takes a lot of years for people to kind of learn that because of the just general conception of, just put a bait out and you can get a bear. Yeah.
Well, and as you're talking about seasons and early and late, like what is typical? Obviously, this year is going to be very different, and we can talk a little bit about that. Like what does it normally look like for you when you want to start putting out a bait versus something like this year where the weather's changed things drastically? Like what determines when you start putting your bait out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be really positive as far as with this great weather we're having. Hopefully that means the bears have gotten a head start as far as getting out of their dens. And
I think so.
Yeah, so I'm trying to be really positive and think of it that way, and thinking to myself that we could see great size and we could see great bear activity early in spring is what I'm hoping for. But generally speaking, on a year where we get a more average snowpack, the snow is really what determines when I'm able to get in. Now I've bear baited in lower elevations before where snowpack is gone pretty much by April, and there's bears in there and stuff, which is great. But generally, because of the elevation that it's at, I find that there's a lot more hunters, there's a lot more pressure, there's a lot more different food sources because of the elevation. Yep. So they're more sporadic, and they're not as patternable, or they're not as consistent as far as daylighting and when they come in. So as I've now ventured to the higher elevations, that's come like more like snow is the biggest factor. And for us, like mid to end of May is generally when we're like, okay, we're still shoveling out the, vehicles from snow, and we're getting stuck in certain little drifts, but we're able to like get in there and at least start getting it set. This year, we'll see. I'm projecting it's going to be a couple week difference as far as being able to get in there. But as soon as that snow's gone, I mean, I know the bears are up moving around and can get in there and set up.
Yeah, which makes sense. Are you, so you're essentially chasing the snow line typically in that scenario, which is
very common practice. I've understood, just even like spot and stock, right?
I'm doing the same thing.
Right, because as that snow goes away, the food source is growing, and then those bears are able to kind of follow that,
Exactly, which is a great tip, like that you just pointed out. Listeners need to gather that, like whether you're spot and stock or setting a bait, you hunt the snow line. I tell people consistently, like bears are going to follow that. Like a lot of them are going to end up denning a little bit lower, but they're going to find dens and stay higher and chase that snow line and get that like that perfectly green grass as it continues up the mountain. That's what they're chasing.
Yeah, tender, fresh, green, supple grass.
Yeah. And that's one thing, you talked about, bears' diets. Early when they come out of the den, and who knows if they even denned up this year. We didn't have a winter.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know.
But, early spring when they're coming out of their dens, they're looking for, the grasses. They're looking for those flowers. It's a lot of vegetation that they're eating. They'll find those wild onions. I mean, there's just a whole different thing. But, there's a lot of forage-based stuff that they're eating. They're trying to get that protein in. They're trying to get those guts going again. Absolutely. And that's, there's a, digestively speaking, and you talked about the sweet stuff. Bears can't really handle that in abundance like they can later on in the summer. And you got to look at the amount of time that bears are spending feeding in the spring versus the late summer. So they're not spending a ton of time, maybe 6-8 hours at the most in the springtime and early summer, whereas that will pick up. And by the time they get around to late summer, early fall, before they know they're going to go to the den, they're going to be spending 20 hours feeding, and they're going to be packing in as much as they can. And a lot of times you're talking berries, you're talking, of course, they're going to be, on prey as in elk calves, deer calves, different things like that. So their diet really changes from the springtime when they come out of the den to before they go into the den. So pre-den type stuff. So I think a good understanding of that is really important here as well.
Yeah, and that's probably why we've seen them have what I called like a more balanced diet as far as their preferences in the bait, because it's not always just donuts, right? Like they'll eat some of the more easily digestible stuff, whether it's like just plain bread or it's, dog food. Or
you talk about oats.
Right.
That's probably a good thing. It's got some fiber in there, but you got to understand too that not only are they hitting this bait, but they're out feeding on that green stuff as well. So they're getting a pretty balanced diet, as you call it.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive how much these bears eat, because even with them feeding on grass and all that stuff, they'll wipe out a bait side in 2 days. It's gnarly. Yeah. So that's the other part of baiting that we've talked about a little bit outside of this. But the biggest thing for folks is it's work. Bear hunting in general is work, whether you're doing it backcountry style and putting the work in on your boots and hiking in and glassing, and that's work. And then the baiting though too. If you're in a good bear area and you're having to rebait every 2 to 3 days, and you're living in town and got to drive 2 hours up into the mountains and hike in and pack in bait, it's a lot of work. And I always spend a lot of time in the spring driving in the night, right? Because I'm coming off the mountain, or I got to get up there, right after work and bait really quick and then drive home or something like that. So it's a lot of work, and that's part of why I love it, to be honest. It's a hard thing. It's something that is going to make you better if you can do it. And then, that delayed gratification of just like the satisfaction of when it all comes together, whether you're in the backcountry or sitting at a bait at 20 yards and a bear walks in under you and doesn't smell you and gives you the chance to shoot him. Wow.
Yeah. So what's your strategy? And I've heard lots of guys talk about different strategies. One friend of mine will pack in an insane amount, like 2,000 pounds of bait the first time, and they will not go back to that bait to hunt it for a week. And when they go back, they're hunting it. They're not taking bait back. They're hunting it. So it's like it's kind of they're trying to, I guess, tone down on the amount of human scent that's spread, but there's also theories on that as well. But then when we were doing it, it was, every 2-3 days, like you were talking about. We'd take in a big load at first to kind of get it going, let it sit for a little bit, and then use the cameras to tell us when we needed to go back and bait. And then it was like every 2 to 3 days. But if you do it every 2 to 3 days, that's kind of what a couple of dudes can do, right? In my experience. What do you guys typically do? Do you start with 1,000 pounds of bait the first time, let it sit for a little bit, and then go to your 2 or 3 day regimen, or what do you do?
You kind of said it, right? The trail cams almost dictate the how quickly we need to be in there. And when we've moved areas or established new bait sites, it is that practice of, okay, let's get it packed as full as we can, get as much bait spread as we possibly can, scent, everything like that, and then let it call, right? Let it sit and soak is what we call it. We let it soak and we let it call out to the bears, and it may take, anywhere from 24 hours to a week for the bears to find it. And then we'll watch, right? And because we are 9 to 5 guys, well, Angry Dick's retired now, so it'll be different this year.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so he'll be more able to run up and like bait and stuff. But because in the past, and for folks like listening, like if you're someone who works a day job, like we always just like every week, let's just go like at least check on it and just see where we're at. And that was before we had the cell cams too, right? It was like, let's just go check on it and see what's happened and top it off. Just because we got 5 days now where we got to be down in the valley and we got to work. And what we've learned through that is just being really intentional about how we're entering the bait sites and what we're doing to keep down on that human scent. So wearing gloves, having one trail in, one trail out, not walking all over the bait site if we don't have to. Obviously, when you're doing stuff like scents and oil, you got to kind of walk around. But if we don't have to, just very streamlined as far as we're in and we're out. And we just try and keep our profile down as much as possible, because we know that if the bears just aren't being consistent yet, or they're just kind of sniffing it out, we don't want to do anything to scare them, So, and we tried one year to do the whole human scent tree, or like, a T-shirt in a tree. And for us, it seemed to just like really booger them. And I think it was probably because we were baiting at that time in a really like highly pressured area. So the bears were like, we can just go to one of the other 30 baits that are on our route right now. Whereas maybe if you're a little more remote, that theory you're talking about is maybe they can get a little more used to the human scent.
So hold up, for those of us spot and stock guys, what's this theory? This human scent T-shirt.
Yeah,
theory. I've never even heard of this.
The theory is, that they can relate the scent of the bait and the taste of the bait to that human scent, which is providing said bait.
I mean, I guess that would make sense.
So they don't get boogered as much with human scent around the bait, because they know the humans are bringing it.
Yeah.
But it's so good and they can't resist.
Yeah, interesting.
Now,
so Richard's putting his underwear in the tree when he leaves.
Wow.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
After leg day.
But I think even though you've got that and you've got that scent intermingled with that bait, you still got to make sure that you've got that wind right when you're actually hunting it, because that'll throw them off right there if they get a big whiff of fresh human scent.
Yeah,
game over. They're leaving.
Especially the more mature bears. I mean, the more you'll get bears all day long. I've heard them being called many things, like rat bears, dog bears, whatever. Like the bears that are 1 to 3 years old, essentially, they're a little less cautious, because they're young and they're learning, and they're just like, hey man, this free meal.
I'm a bear.
And I don't got to worry about old, Mr. Big Boy back there running me off because he's not here. So I'm going to take this while I can. But those bears that are more, the 5 years old and older, I think are definitely a lot more cautious, because they know, like you said, the human scent is not natural. So that's why when we do establish a site or go check on a site, we try to be in as out, as streamlined, as low profile as possible, with gloves. I mean, we literally have specific baiting boots that we'll wear to where it's like we're not hunting in these boots, we're baiting in these boots. So they're just very used to like whatever scent they're picking up off the boot that's getting tracked around. It doesn't ever change on them, so they don't get leery. But a good point as well about scent and bears being cautious is we actually found last year. Angry Dick found out last year that you can almost spend too much time in the bear site. He put in, I believe, over 20 days hunting, I think, or 21 days hunting in the bear sites. And he did, I think, I want to say it was like 9 days straight or 7 days straight. And it actually pretty much killed all bear activity at the sites because I think that they just knew like, whoa, this human scent that's in here really consistent and really strong every day now. Yeah. we don't like that, and we know that's not natural. So we're just gonna hold off. And he was hearing them in the brush and around, so he knew they were still there, but they wouldn't come in until like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. until they really knew the coast was clear. So
have you cooked anything at your bait site?
So that's funny you said that, because like I was saying, where I can watch my old videos and see how we've evolved as bear baiters. You're thinking about us being masters.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's funny, but I didn't go there.
Okay. Self-proclaimed masters. But we have taken a couple different cooking items into the bait, and we've tried cooking bacon and doing like the honey burns, which I'm 50-50 on. We were so new and inexperienced to bear baiting when we did the bacon that I think that it was just like, this was fun and made the sit entertaining. I know it put scent into the air and into the site, but I mean, it didn't. No bears came in, right? So I don't. It wasn't something that was necessary. A lot of guys do honey burns, and I think those are, again, great things to do to call bears, right? Like, I don't necessarily, for me personally, I don't think I would do those things while I'm hunting, because it involves you getting pretty active into your bait site when you're trying to hunt it, and that could put scent on the ground or something, do something different to them when that bear is relentlessly circling before he comes in, he catches something that makes him decide not to come in. So for me, it's a little, maybe it's superstitious, I don't know, but I think that stuff's great for calling. I don't think it's great necessarily for while you're hunting. But definitely effective for scent, for sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I talked to a guy this weekend, as a matter of fact, and he was talking about when he would get the first time he would go in on his bait, he would actually pop popcorn at the site, and he would pop it in sardine oil.
Oh, delicious!
And he said, and he'd burn that popcorn, and it would put this cloud of goodness into the air. And that was just a trick that he liked to do. But
did he say it worked?
Did it work for him?
Oh yeah.
The same day while he was hunting, like the bears were coming in?
Yeah, we're talking, hours later.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that was an interesting take. I'd never heard that. And I'd been with one guy where he did like boiled Kool-Aid and just some type of concoction, made it into a syrup, and and poured it all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And, I think there's just different methods that you can do.
You just made about 10 listeners start carrying around popcorn and sardines.
There we go. The one thing about popcorn is it's light.
Yeah.
Very light.
That's the truth.
But they make a mess out of the popcorn. I'll tell you what, man. They freaking... It's popcorn's one of those things where it's almost not dense enough to make you'll fill up a barrel so quick, and it's so light and so airy that a bear is going to crush that in one sitting, and then your bait's out. So that's, you got to really kind of just fine tune what your mix of bait is going to be, because the more dense and you can pack that barrel. Because the one thing we haven't talked about is guys that take in 2,000 pounds of bait or whatever, they're not, unless they're doing multiple baits with like barrels with multiple tags in the same site, they're not able to get all that in one barrel. And if you're putting it out on the ground, you got other things you got to worry about, like crows. And, crows have been a huge part of our learning experience of how to deal with them. Because we did, in the beginning, do that. I mean, we filled up our whole site with food in the barrel, out of the barrel, whatever. But then it was just crows like mad, and they would just wipe out our bait site before the bears even have the chance. So it's all balance, and it's all, depending on the area, and it's all depending on what you find to work best as far as what you can pack in, what you can prep, what you can gather for bait, and things like that. So,
now talking to you earlier, we were talking about tree stand hunting or saddle hunting, and you talked to me about an interesting tactic, and I think this tactic is favorable with lots of guys in the Midwest, lots of guys in the South. I come from the South, so I know what it's all about. But carrying 2 Gatorade bottles, and one being full of Gatorade, and one being empty. Now, talk to me about that.
Well, when you're spending a lot of time in the trees, and you're staying hydrated and you're drinking your electrolytes and you're staying hydrated and taking care of yourself, you're going to have to pee. And, the extra bottle, it's like, oh, it's extra weight. But let me tell you, about 4 or 5 hours into a sit or a stand in your tree saddle, you're going to be real happy you have that bottle there. And I have a short on our YouTube channel, SteepKuntry Outdoors. We have a short that I'm giving tree stand tips and tricks, and it's like a 4 or 5 part series. And the pee bottle is a big one. And the biggest learning lesson about the pee bottles for folks listening is size matters. You got to make sure that you get a bottle that's not only tall enough for you to, depending on how many times you got to relieve yourself, but is wide enough too, to make sure that you're not missing and getting scent all over yourself.
We're not talking smart water bottles. We're talking the wide mouth Gatorade.
Oh yeah, definitely. You want to leave no room for error. So,
and the biggest thing is scent control. Correct?
Absolutely.
You're not going to want to, hang it off the side and pee down your tree.
No.
Or because we're trying to control scent. Man, I've hunted with buddies before who will say, "Hang on, I'll be right back." And he'll leave the blind, and and antelope hunting kind of speaks volumes there. Mm-hmm. But leave the blind and go do his business. And I'm thinking, what? This is hunting 101. Yep. We don't do that. We either pee way before. Mm-hmm. And we don't drink anything, or we carry our bottle in.
Yep.
And we take care of things that way. So I just found that interesting, and that you had talked about that.
Yeah, I think it's something you don't want to learn the hard way. I would just say it like that. You want to make sure you're prepared when you're going into a tree stand or a tree saddle, that you have the ability to, I guess, store your fluids like when you're up there. So, and it's funny that short, like everyone thinks I'm talking about deer hunting, right? And I don't know, right? You said you're from the south.
Yeah, I mean, that's a standard in whitetail hunting. Antelope hunting, same thing.
Yep.
So having the bottle is just a standard with that. Yes.
That's standard practice, man.
Yeah. So it translates to the bear woods too, for sure.
I've never done this, but I know people that have stayed in blinds antelope hunting for multiple days and done 1 and 2 in the blind.
Wow.
To make sure that they are not leaving water because they had a really big buck that they wanted to kill. I don't know if I'm that committed to antelope.
Dig a hole.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I will give you this pro tip. You need to make sure your Gatorade is either red, blue, or green if they have that. Don't get the yellow Gatorade. No. Because you might mix your bottles up.
So and another pro tip on top of that is once you've filled your empty Gatorade bottle with the yellow stuff, so it gets pretty cold in the spring sometimes, and especially when you're up in a tree.
Oh boy! And
if something's leaving your body at body temp, and you forgot hand warmers, it works as a hand warmer. Or you put it in your puffy coat or something, and it keeps you warm. So it's, people think what they think about that, but it's saved me if I don't have like my heated vest on or whatever, and it's like, I got my pee bottle at least as my like last resort, like hand warmer or like body warmer. Cause the way that the wind and the thermals will suck the heat out of your body, especially late in the evening, and you're in, 20 feet in the tree, it's like, you just feel helpless. So that's pro tip 101 right there, though. That's good.
There are some nuggets in that one. That's for sure. Well, Richard, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I think it's very important that something that I caught on very early on as we were talking here, and I want to kind of, as we close this thing, I want to point this out again to people. You are talking about when you were talking about essentially your learning curve and figuring out thermals and water source and feed and where you're setting up in relation to your bait. And I want people to understand this here. Not only are we contributing to conservation and controlling predators when we're killing bears here on bait sites, that is making you a better elk and deer hunter. Like that absolutely translates to when you hunt ungulates. Like I will guarantee you that made you better in September.
No doubt.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I mean, I would even say this is depending on where we've set up bait sites, it's led to us finding elk, right? Because it's like, oh, there's elk coming into our bait site. Why is there elk here?
Yeah.
Are they going to be here year round? I don't know. Bear season's over. Let's keep our camera up and let's see what they do. And maybe they are just living here, you know? So it's translated to us finding more elk, not only just purely because of figuring out the mountains themselves, but then just like, you know, seeing it with the cameras. And yeah, the greatest thing about bear hunting it has taught me has been how to read the mountains. Because even in September or October or whenever, when I'm sitting there looking at a mountain on Onyx, I can read it so much better now as far as how the ridge system works or how the draws work, or knowing, depending on what elevation I am, what water sources are actually going to be available or not for like the elk. So yeah, I agree 100% that it has made me a better elk hunter and just a hunter in general.
And I love it. Before we get to some trivia, because you know we're going to get there, right?
Oh, yeah. Part 2.
I want to read one more review. Just say thank you. This one's from Jay Davey. It says, the best podcast that I listen to in the mornings while working out and before work. Keep up the great work, guys, and see you on the mountain one day. We hope to see you as well on the mountain one day, getting after it, but that's just a reminder. Thank you so much for the reviews. They seriously mean so much. So it helps the algorithm. Keep the reviews coming, keep the comments coming, share the podcast with a friend, and then remember to hit the follow and download button. Yeah. Dennis?
Okay. Well, Richard, we do a thing called rapid fire. You went through that before, and it's a little fun. You're going to choose one word or the other, no explanation behind it. We're just going to learn a little bit more about you. Okay, so this may or may not be hunting related, but
that's so hard. Not providing the context of the word I choose is like the hardest part. So I'll do my best to just being a one-word guy here. So
okay, football or baseball?
Football.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Ooh. Elk or bear?
Elk, because it provides so much more as far as volume.
Driving or flying?
Driving.
Country or western?
Country with a K all day.
Love it, man.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Richard, give the channel a plug.
Yeah, if you guys want to follow us, head over to SteepKuntry Outdoors, country spelled with a K, Kuntry. We post everything on our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and then obviously like it's linked to all my personal stuff, SteepKuntry_Richard. And yeah, man, the channel has been a great source for folks to come in and like watch our evolution, because I'm trying to be as authentic as I can with just our experiences. So whether you're just watching it for entertainment or education purposes, I think there's something for everyone on our channel, and we appreciate the support that you guys have given us through the years. And, you know, we've hauled out a lot of bears on the old Initial Ascent frame pack. So looking forward to continuing to do that.
Awesome. Thanks.
I love it. And there's a lot on that channel. You're going to get some knowledge bombs like you got here today, and you're going to be able to laugh at Angry Dick. So go hit the follow button.
He's the man.
Perfect. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, guys.
Until next time, keep your eyes on the summit. This is the Mountain Dude Podcast, signing off.